Welcome to Food and Wine with Chef Jamie GWEN. Celebrate food and life by learning about the culinary scene around the world. Speaking with chefs, artisan food makers, farmers, authors, and tastemakers who are passionate about everything delicious.
A very good Sunday to you, food lovers. Chef Jamie GWEN in your radio. This is radio's answer to culinary conversation and inspiration. The culture of food and living the best life, where I celebrate food every Sunday and its ability to feed the soul. I hope you'll join me for trends and travel, tech, the environment, wine, mixology news, and more, because whether you love to cook or love to eat, you are bound to find something you'll love on this show. This is food conversation that really fits your life. It's an easy way to get your quick fix of culinary entertainment, because I believe that great food isn't just about the ingredients, it's about everything that makes a meal. So it's my goal this hour to entice you. San Francisco sommelier turned winemaker Rajat Parr is on a quest. He aspires to make wine that inspires food and wine lovers. Through food, it was Rajat Parr's first love, of course, but wine became his great passion. And as the wine director of the Mina Group, he focuses on creating an unparalleled wine program. The realization of a longtime dream, though, RN74, is his wine bar that recently opened based on his extensive travels and experiences throughout the region of Burgundy, France, a region to which he is deeply connected. I am delighted to share the passion and knowledge of a truly renowned wine educator, aficionado, and a passionate winemaker. He is Rajat Parr, and he joins us to toast and celebrate the virtues of the vines. I'm so glad to have you, Rajat. Welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. It's great to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Tell us about your cellar at RN74. Let's kick it off with a little wine bar conversation, please.
Sure, yeah. So the inspiration is Burgundy is an homage celebration of all the great winemakers of Burgundy and the region of Burgundy, and the name RN74 is the name of the road which goes through the region of Burgundy. Hence, the food is inspired by Burgundy, and of course, the wine program is inspired by Burgundy. So most of the cellar is, I would say, probably 90% is Burgundy. So, of course, whites, Chardonnay, and Burgundy, and of course, lots of red Burgundy, so Pinot Noir.
What is it about the region of Burgundy that you're so compelled, overwhelmed, enamored with, I should say?
Yeah, definitely enamored is a good word for Burgundy. You know, I've been going there since '96 and fell in love with the region, the food, the people, and there's a transparency between the people and the wine in Burgundy, whereas almost, other places in the world can get close, but there's a total transparency between the vineyard, the person, and the wine in Burgundy, and that is what has been my quest for the last, I guess, almost 2 decades now, to kind of not conquer, but just to kind of embrace and love and cherish and share with friends.
So if you were to describe the virtues of Burgundian wine, the classic styles, to a wine lover who is just embarking on a passion for Burgundy or French wines in general, how would you categorize it, classify it, explain it?
Of course, the white grape is Chardonnay and the red grape is Pinot Noir. The Chardonnay from Burgundy, depending on where it's grown, is more crisp and clean and fresh, mineral, more lemon, lime flavors, more kind of fresh apple, pear flavors. You rarely get any of this big butterscotch, oaky, kind of buttery styles. It's more kind of crisp and fresh, and these wines can age up to 40, 50 years in your cellar, and as they age, they get better and develop more of these exotic kind of white truffle and kind of custardy kind of very, very bright flavors. And then for the Pinot Noir, of course, the most aromatic, ethereal, rose petal, rhubarb, cherry, is cola, all these amazing spices. Again, the wines are more crunchy, more vibrant, more lively with acidity and freshness, and just the most seductive wines in the world.
In your biography online, there's a mention, and you speak to the fact that being a sommelier in a restaurant and trying to fulfill the needs and the tastes of the guest is almost like being a wine psychologist. And I loved that analogy. I thought it was just wonderful. Leave us with this, with about a minute left or so. What are the top wine trends in the U.S. that you believe right now will continue, or what can we expect to see in the wine world in the months and years to come?
I think, it's been happening for many years. So trends come and go, but something which has always stayed in wine is honest wine. These wines which are made with good pedigree, with good balance, from the right vineyard, from the right place. It's just without any manipulation, without any kind of fussing around, but good, honest, delicious wine you can drink every day. And then, of course, there are the level of honest wines is the wines which age, the wines, of course, the great Burgundies, Rhones, and Bordeaux of the world. But
yes.
Really, I think what stays is we want to make sure everyone drinks honest wines, fresh wines, balanced wines, wines which really, evoke a sensation inside you in your soul, not just only in your body.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and the elegance by which you create wines is no doubt a great credit to you. We want everyone drinking Sandhi wines. We know you do. Dedicated to making wines of finesse, minerality, structure, and balance. You can learn more about Rajat Par's winemaking at sandhiwines.com, SANDHI wines.com, and the San Francisco Wine Bar that is truly enticing. RN74 is the urban modern interpretation of a refined wine bar, so check it out in the heart of San Francisco. Rajat, I hope you'll come back soon and share your passion for wine continually on this show.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. We're spicing it up in your radio today with the beauty and the nuances of Indian food, which I love. Chef Jamie GWEN in your radio. Making Indian classics at home just got easier. As a child growing up in Bombay, Neela Panis was drawn to the fragrant kitchen aromas that were conjured up by her family's skillful cook. And after moving to the States in 1968, she started to delve into simple Indian cooking. Well, in 1985, Neela defied the stereotypes of rich, heavy Indian dishes when she opened her restaurants in Los Angeles, Chutney's Indian Fast Food, and the hugely successful and much-loved Bombay Cafe. Her book, The Bombay Cafe Cookbook, put her on the national map as one of the leading voices of contemporary Indian cuisine. And her newest cookbook has just released. It's entitled The New Indian Slow Cooker, and proving that Neela is ever present in the gastronomic world and always elevating her native food as a leading voice of Indian cuisine. She is joining us live to share the beauty of recipes for curries, dals, chutneys, masalas, and more, all from your slow cooker, and I'm delighted. Neela, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Talk to us, if you would, about the most important spices in an Indian pantry, because no matter how you're preparing the dish, whatever method you choose to use, now we're all going to our slow cooker because of you, there are definitely essentials of an Indian spice pantry.
There are indeed, and if I start listing them, you're going to assume that there's plenty of them to use, but they're really very important. Cumin, coriander, turmeric, red chili, whole cinnamon, cloves, black pepper, cardamom, both the green and the black. And then to add on more, we have things like fenugreek, white poppy seeds, crushed dried pomegranate seeds, dried green mango powder.
Talk to us about green mango powder, would you? That excites me.
It is actually a spice that can be used for much more than just Indian cooking. And there are so many of our recipes where we want to add a sourness or bring the tart element into it, but don't wish to use the juice because that is liquid when we want it in a dry form.
Right.
And that's where green mango powder comes in. And it actually, even though it is definitely acidic in flavor, has a little fruity sweetness to it. And it's... for example, if you were making French fries and you just sprinkled a little bit of that on it when you salt and pepper them after French frying them.
Oh, Neela.
It takes it to a different level.
I was just going to say, that sounds scrumptious and outside of the Indian realm, but there must be so many applications. I can't wait to buy some. You've inspired me.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And find wonderful ways to use it. Let's delve into the recipes. I've created a whole menu of dishes from the book that I can't wait to make. And by the way, if you've just tuned in, you're late. She is Neela Panis, and the new Indian slow cooker is the cookbook just released from certainly the leading voice of Indian cuisine. I know one of the more popular dishes at Bombay Cafe, which I remember eating, was a chicken soup that you make with rice and spinach and tomatoes. And it lends itself beautifully to the slow cooker as well.
It's redolent of all those spices that I just spoke of. The whole cardamom, cinnamon, cloves. And it's a clear broth. And then just a simple addition of cooked rice, some tomatoes, some of the chicken that was used to make the soup, and a little bit of fresh spinach leaves in there. And if you like, you can spike it with some freshly chopped green chilies too, serranos. I consider it to be the Indian counterpart of a good Jewish matzo ball soup or chicken soup.
I was going to say that. I grew up on Jewish penicillin.
Right.
My mother makes the best chicken soup, but I love the idea of spiking with the Indian flavor. Leave us with this. You mentioned roasted cumin, and I think it's one of the best tips you could share as far as bringing the flavors alive in Indian cuisine. Do you roast the cumin in a sauté pan on top of the stove? Do you do a larger batch in the oven? Teach us how.
I do it because I don't like to roast spices and keep them for too long, and I obviously use them more often than most people. I like to do it on a small skillet, dry roast them, gently shaking it over medium-high heat. You will see the cumin seeds turn a deeper brown color, but more importantly, you will smell the aroma, and you'll know that they're done. Certainly
the best tips from one of the best, Neela, and I thank you. You've made me salivate and savor over Indian cuisine, and I can't wait to cook from the book. It was a delight to have you back on the radio, and
thank you so much.
I thank you for sharing your passion. Featuring more than 60 fix-it-and-forget-it recipes for Indian favorites, all of the curries and the dals and the chutneys, soups, and more that you love, now featured in the Indian Slow Cooker Cookbook, a wealth of flavor-packed recipes for classic Indian dishes from, no doubt, a leading voice of Indian cuisine for so many years here. She is Neela Panis. Neela, I hope you'll come back soon.
I hope so, too.
We do have the biggest culinary thinkers on this show. For the record, though, I am not a fan of this gentleman's culinary prowess just because he reigned me a cutthroat kitchen champion. He did serve as the judge for my proud episode, but it's his gastronomic philosophy that I admire most. He'll go anywhere and eat everything. He has traveled to 72 countries, written 2 books, and become a staple on the Food Network. His third book, entitled Fed White and Blue, which will chronicle his journey to becoming a true American citizen through his favorite subject, food that is due out in spring of next year. He's been named one of the top 50 food and drink journalists around the world, the #1 UK blog. And you've seen his straight-faced and incredibly integrity-full judging gracing the Food Network's Cutthroat Kitchen, Next Iron Chef America, and The Best Thing I Ever Ate. He's here to dish, and I am so delighted. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Simon Majumdar. Welcome, Simon. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, and
yes,
thank you for getting my name so perfectly pronounced. I can't tell you how many different versions of my name I have heard over the years, and you got it spot on.
Well,
so
thank
God bless you for that.
Well, certainly. I've actually heard Majumdar botched many a time as well. I will say. I love your story, Simon, and I knew it prior to having the wonderful opportunity of meeting you and working with you. But I would love for those that don't know your story to really hear about it. You made a life change at 40, and you started on the road to explore the culture of food, which has really taken you extraordinary places.
I mean, it has both kind of emotionally and physically taken me to extraordinary places. Yes. I had a great first life as it was. I was a book publisher, and I was doing quite well in the UK. And then when I turned 40 and I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, my mother had died, I went through some very bad times, some very dark times, and food was really where I went for my happy place, for my rescue. And after a very, very dark night where I have to say, I'm lucky I came through it, Thankfully, because I got more hungry than anything else and I decided I needed to cook, I decided to quit my job and go around the world to eat. And just to go and see what else was out there in this world, apart from staring at a desk and looking at spreadsheets, and I'm sure lots of people who are listening can sympathize with that. And I was fortunate that I'd saved up a lot of money, and I spent my entire life savings, and I went to 31 countries in a year, and that ended up being my first book, Eat My Globe. But that changed my life. I mean, not least because I met my now wife on that journey.
Yes.
And moved to the United States to be with her, and which is the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. And because of that, I ended up almost by accident ending up on the Food Network. And it's just been a magical few years. I went through some very dark times, but, I'm in a very happy place now. And really, food was the thing that saved me. So in a very sort of physical sense and spiritual sense, it kind of really nourished what I do now.
For so many of us who love this wide world of food, food is the culprit for so many things. And like you said, it brought you to settle in the U.S., to have this wonderful wife and family life. And it was very much a culinary exploration that brought you to that place. And I wonder where you would go back to visit. Like, what are the best memories from that year on the road when you wrote Eat My Globe?
There were some wonderful experiences of places, of course, so being in India and being on the tea plantations of Darjeeling, riding on the Trans-Siberian Express, being in Senegal or going to the Sherry Fair in Spain. I mean, there were dozens of them because I was on the road solidly for a year. But as much as it is still now, food is really the prism I use to meet people, and as much it would be about going to meet people. There's a couple called Pertti and the Prinsessa, who are an older couple who lived in the very far north of Finland, who invited me into their home and prepared one of the most incredible meals I've ever had in my life, where everything that we ate had been dug from their land or hunted on their land or fished in their waters. And it was just this magical, almost fairy tale meal. But it was really because of these people who opened their homes to me, as they do in the United States. They just open their homes because of food and show their generosity. And I'm a great believer, we talk about the United States, and I said this the other day in an interview, we find so many ways to argue with each other in this country, and it could be guns or religion or politics. And when you sit down with someone and you share a meal, all of those differences tend to disappear, or they certainly become less important.
Yes.
And I always say it's very hard to have an argument with someone when you've got a mouthful of ribs. And so I'm a great believer that food is an equalizer, and I love the idea of traveling around the country and meeting people who are very different from me, culturally, religiously, politically, but just breaking bread with them. And I think food has that ability. So certainly on my first journey, it was all about meeting these extraordinary people who are now still my friends. They're part of my family.
Yeah, I like to say that food definitely feeds the soul. And with about 60 seconds left here, I would love for my listeners to gain further insight into the world of Simon Majumdar. So if you will answer these 3 culinary questions for us.
Fire away.
Okay, your favorite breakfast, please, good sir.
I'm a great believer I'm Scottish breakfast, so I love porridge, oatmeal. I love oatmeal with peanut butter and banana.
If you want to spice things up and you're cooking, what is your seasoning, your chili pepper, your spice of choice?
Well, I'm half Indian, so my kitchen always has green chili in it, and I use that a lot. And I also use Kashmiri red chili powder, which is not so hot but gives great color. So I'm going to be, even this afternoon, I'm going to be cooking some Indian food, and I'm always going to have my red chili powder at the hand.
And then last but not least, Simon, do you ever think you'll take a liking to truffle oil?
I will never take a liking to truffle oil. It is the single most loathsome ingredient on the face of God's planet. It's chemical. And I'll tell you one other thing. Every single judge, every single chef I know who's in the Food Network, they all hate it.
Yes.
So if you ever want to win a competition, if anyone's listening and they're ever on a Food Network competition, hide the truffle oil.
Hide the truffle oil from Simon Majumdar, FYI. We appreciate that you keep us informed and entertained and satiated, and we look forward to the release of Fed, White, and Blue, chronicling your journey of becoming a true American citizen, as you say, through food. And I hope you'll come back prior to next spring, of course, and highlight the beauty of the book and allow us to better get to know you. It was my pleasure, Simon. Thank you.
It was my pleasure,
Thank
and
you.
I hope everyone just goes and has a great meal now
Yes.
and enjoys it.
And I hope you'll meet me here next Sunday when there's more scintillating conversation in your radio. A very good week to you. I hope you continue to eat well. I'm Chef Jamie Gwen signing off. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next Sunday.